we doing before we had these medications?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, they're probably not using a lot of Prozac in Papua New Guinea, are they?
So it's like 1 in 6 US adults takes prescription medication for mental health issues.
And we're using them based off of flawed, outdated theories of what's going on when it comes to depression and anxiety.
The society has been sold the lie that if you don't feel good, you have a chemical imbalance.
I don't fit in the standardized pretty little box that everybody wants everybody to fit in. I'm trying to do too much.
I'm not even here. I'm 2 days ahead of myself on the freeway with an 18-wheeler on the left side of me.
And I'm not taking the time to slow down because if I start my day with meditation, I'm a completely different person.
You've got to slow down.
I'm a believer.
If complex PTSD was given its full due, that the DSM would be the size of a pamphlet.
You're angry and you're angry and you keep taking it on, like that will manifest as some hot inflammatory disease.
This idea that I'm only allowed to feel good feelings is just, it's inhuman and it's not sustainable.
No wonder we're not highly functioning.
Meditation is the best practice for helping you to grow in awareness.
I'm ready to go hit some mantras.
Welcome to Herbalism Uncensored, the podcast where we dig deep into the world of herbalism and natural healing. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Lila. We're two clinical herbalists who recognize the need for honest and authentic conversations about the state of natural healing today. As practitioners, we feel called to have uncensored discussions about why people aren't finding relief and what to do about it.
If you're frustrated by lack of results, overwhelmed by conflicting advice online, disillusioned by the commercialization of wellness, or simply passionate about natural healing, you're in the right place.
This podcast is our way of cutting through the noise, busting myths, and challenging marketing gimmicks.
This is Herbalism Uncensored,
where together we're nurturing the future of natural healing.
The contents of this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not intended to be a substitute in any way for professional medical advice, treatment, or diagnosis. It's important that you always seek the advice of your physician or other licensed healthcare provider with any questions or concerns you may have regarding a medical condition. Okay, welcome to this episode of Herbalism Uncensored, where we're going to talk about medications.
What kind of medications?
The kind that they prescribe for mental health, SSRI, benzos, ADHD medications, just like all of the things that people are prescribed in order to help with their mood, attention span, to make you feel right.
Or to help you function in a society that wants you to function in a certain way.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, before we hit record, Alicia and I were I feel like we already talked a whole episode.
We already did the podcast. We just didn't record it.
And I mean, like, where did we just leave off? Like talking about children getting put on ADHD medication and Ritalin and.
So, yeah, I mean, I want to be very clear that I think that things like SSRIs are fantastic tools to be used like for short-term use. And that's how they were designed to be used.
Oh, and I'm going to say I don't share that opinion. I think even for short-term use, while that is designed and they can help some people in some scenarios, the results are average compared to placebo effects, and the risk is really high and the side effects are treacherous. So while I do think that they can be used in specific situations, I don't think they should be frontline, and I think it needs more conversation around the dangers and the side effects. I mean, one of the side effects to antidepressant medication is depression. It's suicidal ideation. And they don't know who's going to have that side effect when they are choosing who to prescribe that drug to. It's trial and error, baby.
Yeah. Well, and there's that. And then, okay, I think about like benzodiazepines, right? So this is your Xanax, your Klonopin, your, what's that stuff? Your Ativan. They're highly effective medications. And I read a case study from a woman in the UK. This was years ago. She owned a rehab that specialized in helping people to detox from benzodiazepines. Because, am I saying benzodiazepine right? I am.
We call them benzos.
Yeah, benzos. We call them that here too, right? But the problem with benzos, and I mean, these are things that are highly effective. Like, let's say you have, if you're, someone is brutally beaten, or if you get run over by a train, or if your child suddenly dies and you are just, you completely non-functional, you need a cushion to get through a period of time before you can begin your grief work, really, then it can be a fabulous tool. But because the half-life of most of these medications are so long, the metabolites accumulate. And what happens is people start to have withdrawal symptoms between doses, and the withdrawal symptoms mimic the symptoms that people start taking the medication for in the first place. And that's how we had this epidemic of people who started off on 0.25 milligrams of Xanax, and then 2 years later they're on 3 milligrams of Xanax and they still have anxiety, because it was never ever ever meant to be a long-term solution. It was designed to be a short-term solution after a major trauma, before you start to work through your trauma.
And that's a very good important thing to bring up. These tools are being used and abused, and the amount they're being prescribed and the way they're being prescribed. Once a drug is approved, the FDA approves it, it can be used for any off-label use. So they experiment with these drugs and who's taking these drugs, and they're real people with real side effects, and these things really impact their life in a profound way, for better or for worse. And what I find really interesting, and I was a little shocked to know this, but Prozac came out in the late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were we doing before we had these medications? Like, these medications are
Talk therapy.
pretty new in the grand scheme of things. Talk, well, and
Yeah.
and talk therapy. But I think there's more to the story there of like why do humans need pills to take the edge off daily life and even these events that happen, that while they're traumatic and big, like why are these tools now needed when we haven't had them for since the dawn of time, right?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
But that could be the wrong direction. But that just made me think of like, how did we get to the place where we do need these things? Did we use a plant alternative here? Or were we able to grieve? Was death more out in the open and we were able to manage these things a little better? Was it because we were more in community? Was it because our bodies were more in balance and we were more resilient? Like that just got me thinking down the entire rabbit hole. Sorry.
Oh, well, I mean, there's so many answers to that question. I think that we used to have community. I think that I've brought this up with you before. Like, I look at the women who live in my neighborhood who have children, and I see them walking with their children, and they are raising their children alone. Even they have husbands, they have partners, but that's not how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be a village. Women are supposed to have more help. They're supposed to have more community when they're raising their children. Children are supposed to have more community while they're being raised. We used to go outside and spend more time outside and do more physical labor. All of these things have positive effects on our mood and our sense of connection. And when you talked about grief and death being out in the open, we used to have death rituals. Like, I don't know, this is like a new thing where people don't have funerals.
Hmm.
Like, I've actually known some people over the last few years who've died, and not pandemic related at all. They had no funeral, like they didn't want one. And so then people don't get to grieve. You made me think about, and Pete Walker talks about this in one of his books, that there is a tribe in, I believe it's Papua New Guinea, where they have a holiday every year that's like a day of grief. And all they
Oh.
do, they sit around and hold each other and cry and wail, and just like they let all of the negative feelings bubble up and they let them out, whether they're screaming or crying or wailing, and they allow that. That is, they have an entire day devoted to that, and no one there is clinically depressed.
Yeah, they're probably not using a lot of Prozac in Papua New Guinea, are they?
No, I don't think they're using any, but they're also outside. They also have a sense of community, and they're honoring their grief, and they're honoring it and holding space for it.
Oh, and that just thinking about how, India handles their death rituals and how these other cultures handle their death rituals, it really just makes me think of like how isolating modern life has become. And as like we saw the nuclear family and both parents started working and we started living farther and farther away from our tribes and all these things happen, like each generation out is getting more and more isolated, and we are seeing high correlations with the amount of anxiety and depression and suicide rates that are happening. Well, I don't think that that's the only factor. I think it's a huge factor in what's going on. Like I think we have a mental health epidemic happening. Like we are in an epidemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking up the statistics on psych meds, right? That up to what was it? Where's the good one? So it's like 1 in 6 US adults takes prescription medication for mental health issues. 1 in 9 adults take medication specifically for depression. And the number just continues to increase.
Well, I think we have to go. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just looking at, as of 2022, 59.3 million US adults had a diagnosable mental illness. Among those, about 50% received mental health treatment, which includes medication, therapy, or both. That's roughly 30 million people. There's just like 1 in 6. So if you're in a room with 30 people, 5 of them are diagnosed and on medications for their moods.
That's wild. And anxiety and depression have been a huge battle of mine and my upbringing. And I know you've battled these things too. And I think we'll touch on those in a little bit. But I think one of the things that blows my mind as we've been talking about and preparing for this episode is we are using these psych meds and we don't know what they do. We don't understand them. We don't understand how they work. And we're using them based off of flawed, outdated theories of what's going on when it comes to depression and anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the chemical imbalance is a lie. It's a lie. It's a story. It's a theory. It's a hypothesis that has been sold as a truth. If I'm depressed, it's not because I have a chemical imbalance. I'm almost about to get a tear. I mean, this idea that there's something wrong with you and we need to fix it is just really a horrible message to send generations of people to sell a society. The society has been sold the lie that if you don't feel good, you have a chemical imbalance.
That's a lie I believed for many years, which was almost nice because I almost didn't have to take responsibility for my anxiety and depression. It was just a chemical imbalance. But it's true that has been proven. They've done studies. I mean, we mainly, when it comes to depression, pay attention to the neurotransmitter serotonin, which is problematic because there's so many more neurotransmitters and the body works in this very interconnected, holistic way. But we've shown that more serotonin, less serotonin doesn't equal depression. And as you were bringing up and we were talking about for earlier, people that are depressed and people that are not depressed can have the same levels of serotonin and show different functionings in their feelings of day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they've done multiple studies where they do spinal taps and look at people, the metabolites of serotonin in people's cerebrospinal fluid. And they find that depressed people, non-depressed people, same levels of metabolites. So it's like if I'm depressed, it's not because I have a serotonin deficiency. But that's that's what your psychiatrist would want you to believe. Your psychiatrist may believe that.
What was the quote I sent you beforehand? Depression is not a Prozac deficiency.
Depression is not a Prozac deficiency.
I was gonna say, even if the chemical imbalance theory was right, we have to stop and ask, why are we chemically imbalanced? Because the issue is not the end of the stream manifestation of this chemical imbalance. It's like you have to back it up and say, why are our chemicals imbalanced? When women have hormone imbalances, it's not, I have a hormone imbalance. It's, why are your hormones imbalanced, right? Like we have to back it up and figure out, why is the body out of balance in the first place, which is completely bypassed in mental health. And I think you cannot look at mental health without looking at the body, what's going on physiologically, like not just in the mental thinking mind, what's going on in the gut, what's the nutrient status, but also what's your home life, what are your relationships, what are you doing for joy and purpose and activity and sunlight? Like it's a holistic thing that we are trying to and say, oh, it's a chemical imbalance.
Yeah. Like we put the
Blows my
brain in a
mind.
box like it's not connected to anything else in the body. And that's you made me think I have a friend who works in recovery. And that's something people in early sobriety, man, they're depressed, they're anxious, like it's just the way it is. I mean, if you pour a bunch of drugs or alcohol in your system and then suddenly you don't have that, you're walking around feeling like your nerves are on the outside of your body. You're uncomfortable. And people are like, I'm so depressed. He says, you want to know why you're depressed? Because you've been doing a bunch of depressing shit. If you're doing a bunch of depressing shit, it will make you depressed. If you have a job that you hate, you're in a relationship where you're unhappy, you don't like the town that you live in, you're eating a bunch of junk food all the time, and you're overfed and undernourished, these things make people depressed. And then also focusing on those things will make you depressed. There's a mindfulness aspect to it. We can train ourselves to to shift our perspective. We can give ourselves the nutrients that we need. It is all connected. But this idea that I think we talked too long before we started hitting record and I'm running out of steam.
Go huff some Bacopa.
I already had some. It's so awful.
It is bad.
So I was talking to somebody the other night, and just on Thursday night, I was talking to a man who, when he was 4 years old, and when he's about my age, so I'm 40, right? So this is like we were the first generation of children that were drugged because we couldn't pay attention, right? Because we were kids. Because we were kids. Because it's because kids are supposed to be outside running around. Kids are not designed to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and not go and run around and play and just pay attention. And people who were not able to do that were drugged. And that's what he said, that he was 4 years old and he went to preschool and that he was just a real high energy kid. And the message was sent to him that he was a bad kid and he was put on Ritalin by the time he was 5. And I was like, you're 5? Because I think you ask the question of like, why do we need these things? And if you go back 100 years, a 5-year-old boy would be like working on the farm. He's either going to get a job selling newspapers or riding his bike delivering newspapers, or he's working on a farm where he's collecting eggs and he's milking the cow and he's hauling wood or what. He's outside, he's doing things, he's moving around, he's learning how to hunt, he's learning how to fish and be a man. And instead, we take that high energy little boy and we put him in a classroom. We say, sit at this desk, pay attention. And when he can't do that, there's something wrong with you. Take this pill.
This topic's gonna make me like I'm already tearing up because nothing like breaks my heart more than what we're doing to the children. Like Leslie Tara says in one of her books, Healing with the Herbs of Life, ADHD is not diagnosed. The diagnosis is nothing to do with the child. It has to do with the adult's ability to handle children.
Yeah.
And I have a partner who's closer to your generation than my generation. And he was put on Ritalin at a very young age for many, many years. And he was given the belief without his consent that he's too much. And so what is somebody who thinks they're too much to? They shut off their emotions. They shut off their feelings, the good ones and the bad ones. And it literally dampens their ability to feel joy and express themselves and like be their truest, authentic self, because they were, 1, chemically blunted, but 2, sent the message very loud, very clearly, you are too much for the world. And nothing to me is more heartbreaking than what's happening right now. Like it hurts on such a deep level to watch what's happening to children and to adults.
And I think that level of yours that where you're feeling these feelings, like that is your maternal level and your primal level, because we are designed and built to protect children. And it's wrong. My husband, you never have to wonder what he's thinking. Yeah, he really is the salt of the earth, and he just says what he's thinking. And one of his friends from high school came to visit us. His son was in middle school. He got diagnosed with ADHD. they prescribed him, I think it was Adderall. And he was like, you're giving your kids speed. You shouldn't do that. I know exactly what he said because his friend was like, no, man, the doctor gave it to him. A bunch of kids take it. It's helping his grades. And he said, oh, it's helping his grades. I'll tell you what, when you go home tonight, what's your kid weigh? You weigh about twice as much as he does. So when you go home tonight, why don't you take 2 of them? And see how it makes you feel. And the guy was like, he didn't sleep for 3 days. He was like, I took my kid off that shit. Like, I can't believe they gave that stuff to my kid. And I think that is changing. There is a generation, like my sister is your age and she has 4 kids. And one of them is, how old is Noah? Noah's 9. And school days are long. And they don't have gym every day anymore. And there have been some discussions about taking him to a doctor, and they think he's got ADD and he's not paying attention because he does. He just kind of like will zone out, like his eyes will glaze over. Even, when I have him, sometimes I've got to like snap my fingers. Hey, can you hear me? Pay attention. And Noah's been doing yoga since he was like 2 or 3 years old. He knows how to meditate. He knows breathing exercises. And she's gone to bat with the school for him that, if he's having trouble paying attention, let him go out into the hallway and do some yoga. He needs to do some breathing exercises. If you let him go out in the hallway for 5 minutes and breathe, and when he comes back in, he will be a different kid. But the thing is that the school, they've got 30 kids. They can't let all 30 kids go out into the hallway. It's a model that's not working to our society's benefit.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And I could probably go to a therapist, a psychotherapist, whatever, and get an official ADHD diagnosis. But the way I see it is I don't fit in a box. I don't fit in the standardized pretty little box that everybody wants everybody to fit in. Like I watch myself in meetings with other people. Like, I don't sit still. I sit with my leg up and I'm fidgeting because I wasn't meant to sit there in a boring meeting listening to people just drone on, right? Like, that's not what my body wants to be doing. That's not where I want to be. And that manifests as like ADHD behaviors. I have time blindness because we were not meant to be ruled by a clock. Like, I feel that it's a very overused thing that describes us trying to fit people in a box when they don't fit in a box. But then on the other side of that, we're doing things that are making people, I'll say, hyperactive, right? Like, we're increasing their sugar intake. We are feeding children foods with monosodium glutamate, right? MSG, like that excites the neurotransmitters and makes us more antsy. And we are using food dyes that have absolute adverse effects in our children. Like, we are stimming ourselves by like watching short videos and, what is the internet and this information overload? Like, we are going against our human nature. We are going against what nature wants us to be doing, and it is showing as ADHD, in my opinion.
Well, you've got to slow down. I mean, so I have a client who that was one of her major complaints, was major time blindness. She had timers all over the place and like all kinds of alarms set on her phone, and that was her biggest complaint, was time blindness. She says she had an executive dysfunction. This is a term that I actually started to hear about 4 years ago. Executive dysfunction. I was like, what does that mean? And it means you have a hard time getting stuff done, basically. Things need to be done and you have a hard time getting them done. So those were her biggest complaints. And we just ran through like 3 minutes of alternate nostril breathing. Nadi Shodhana. In through one nostril, out through the other, in through the same nostril, out through the other. And in the end, ended with like a nice hold and some mole bond. Which, like, mole bond, guys, is when you squeeze your genitals. You squeeze like you've really got to go to the bathroom, and you're on that long car ride in the middle of nowhere and there's nowhere to stop. So you just got to really, really, really squeeze it in. So we ended with a breath hold in that. And I mean, we just did 3 minutes. And when we were done, she was amazed. She was like, oh, I just never felt this good. And I think that she I don't want to speak for her. I'll speak for myself. That I know when I catch myself feeling time blindness or executive dysfunction, it feels to me like stress. Like I start holding my breath. I'm not living in the present moment. I'm thinking about what I've got to do tomorrow. I mean, I could get caught up in what I need to do right now. I could get caught up in what we're doing after this podcast. And before I know it, in my head, I could be right here with you, but in my head, I'm going to be stuck in traffic, in holiday traffic on Monday on the freeway between here and Louisiana. Like, I'm not even here. I'm 2 days ahead of myself on the freeway with an 18-wheeler on the left side of me. And then I'm going to start acting like that and can't be present. So when I take the time to slow down and to breathe, to give my brain that oxygen that it needs, that helps to reduce inflammation in the body and stimulate my vagal nerve, any kind of like back of the throat breathing, anytime you're making a noise, can you hear that?
Yes.
It's calming. And so, I don't know, there's all kinds of little tips and tricks that I can do to like help myself focus. Or like if we go back into the depression discussion, help myself feel a little bit more joy. And I think that we have to make time for that. Like life is so different today than it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And think about, I don't know about you, but I have to be like so intentional and really carve out time to like sit on the porch and drink some iced tea with a friend or with my husband. And I really believe that my great grandmother did that every day. And her generation didn't have the kind of problems my generation has.
Well, I'm really glad you said that because that is such a important thing to recognize. Like when my time blindness is peak, it's I'm trying to do too much. I'm tying my self-worth to productivity. And so there's never enough time and I have too much to do, more things than a human needs to be doing in a day. And I'm not taking the time to slow down because if I start my day with meditation, I'm a completely different person than if I started a different way or I immediately jump into tasks or watching something on the internet or, emails or things that use and take my attention and energy in different ways. And yeah, the meditation, supporting your body with herbs, sleeping right and eating right, like those things alone will change your life. They will change how you interact with the world on such a profound level that like you probably don't even recognize yourself.
I 100%. And I'm just gonna like, I know that the fear or what holds a lot of people back from doing that is the time for meditation. And it's just the weirdest thing because when I make time for my meditation, suddenly there's more time for everything else. And yeah, it makes the space. Exactly. So what I always tell people is to just start, if you could start with 3 minutes. I was looking at I was geeking out. Do I go to some of the research that I had on meditation and brain mood research? So like the well-studied dose has the strongest clinical evidence for mood and anxiety is the MBSR. What is that? I can't remember what that stands for.
New Brunswick Southern Railway.
No, not in. Oh, I should make better notes. Mindfulness-based stress reduction. So this is an 8-week structured program developed by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn at the University of Massachusetts in 1979. So they have like a whole structure where they do a weekly class of 2.5 hours, a daily practice of 45 minutes, a 1 full day retreat, and guided mindfulness practices like meditation, body scanning, and mindful movement. So they do body scanning, mindful meditations, mindful breathing, sitting meditation. That's what everybody thinks of when they think of meditation. They think sitting meditation. But then they also do walking meditation and practicing awareness of thoughts and emotions. And so what they have found is that this is more effective at helping our moods than any kind of medications that are out there. Just saying.
Hey, I'm a believer. Well, and I told you this before, but there's a what?
Just the way you said that, I thought you were going to start talking about Jesus or something.
I'm a believer. Oh Lord. No, there's a YouTube. I don't know his credentials. I don't know if he's a therapist or a psychotherapist or he's something in that realm. I think he can prescribe medications. And he talks about like he will use SSRIs maybe if somebody has an okay life and is still depressed, and maybe it's a biological malfunction. But if you have a shitty life and you have circumstances in your life that will very much explain why you are depressed, a pill will not magically fix that. You need skills to get yourself a better life and to get yourself a better position in life. Because, like, you can't medicate a bad situation and make it go away. If you don't like your husband, an antidepressant's not going to fix that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As we were kind of like digging around and thinking about topics for this episode, I ended up on Pete Walker's website, and you can email him. I want to invite him to come and talk to us.
Oh, that'd be fun. I just
Oh,
dug in. I just started digging into the book you sent me, and there's so many cute quotes in it.
yeah, because so you've been reading the Tao of Fully Feeling, right?
Mm.
And I mean, and I don't know, he's just amazing. He writes extensively about complex PTSD, and his theory of mental illness and treatment comes from his own experience as both a survivor of childhood trauma and a clinician working with trauma survivors. So his theory is that trauma is the root of all mental illness. And I mean, there's a whole chapter. He has a book called Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving. There's an entire, like, I don't know if it's a whole chapter or section of a chapter of what you may have been misdiagnosed with. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's him, it's somebody else that he quotes in his book, says that if complex PTSD was given its full due, that the DSM would be the size of a pamphlet. And his treatment strategies include things like, paying attention to how you talk to yourself, challenging your inner thought patterns, grieving and reclaiming your emotions, like feeling your feelings, because that's the thing that's really tragic, I think, about the SSRIs, the benzodiazepines. Like you and I were talking about this earlier, like I kind of feel like I've been a little bit depressed. I'm always working on my own personal development. I'm always working on my own growth. You and I've both been working with a hypnotherapist, right? So I'm digging into some things from the past, and I've uncovered some old memories that I have some feelings about. And so I've been feeling my feelings, and it feels a little bit like maybe I'm depressed, like I'm a little more tired and a little less motivated than usual. And I need to grieve. I'm choosing to grieve and feel my feelings and to allow these repressed feelings to emerge and metabolize. And I know that on the other side of that is authentic self-expression and joy again. And I'm not feeling a whole lot of joy right now, but I think that it would be profoundly self-harmful if I started taking a substance right now that numbed me and kept me from feeling the uncomfortable feelings.
Yes,
That's
because keep going.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Well, I
go
was to
ahead.
say if you don't process those emotions and get them out, like what do stuck emotions manifest as? Like that's one
Ooh.
route to disease, right? Like not letting things work through your body and get it out. Like if you have repressed anger, then you're angry and you're angry and you're angry and you keep taking it on, like that will manifest as some hot inflammatory disease. Just wait, you know?
Yeah,
You
just
you
wait.
have to get it out.
It's not good for your liver. And that's one of the things that I love about Pete Walker. Like he talks about healthy angering, and he talks about toxic positivity, like this idea that we have in our culture. And it's like, ooh, uncomfortably entrenched in the alternative wellness space that like we should all be happy all the time and we should all feel good all the time. And it's deep in society, and it's even, I think we want to talk about how twice as many women take antidepressants as men. Maybe it's because society expects women to be more nurturing and more happy even than men are. Like men are kind of allowed to be a little bit angry, right? But if I'm angry, then I'm a nag. And so this idea that I'm only allowed to feel good feelings is just, I don't know, it's like inhuman. It's inhuman and it's not sustainable. That's the word I'm looking for. It is not sustainable because I'm a human being. I'm experiencing the human experience. And the universe has given me a full range of human emotions. I get to feel all of them today. That's part of the human experience. And I need to be able to talk to other people who are doing the same thing and have connection and relation and share vulnerably. And if I can't do all of these things, then yeah, I'm going to feel like something's wrong with me.
Yeah. And I know you and I both work with anxiety and depression, and we've seen people that have complex PTSD in our practice. And I think it's really interesting to note that at the end of the day, like whatever we're feeling is there's an imbalance in our life somewhere. Whether it's we're getting too much of something we don't need, whether we're not getting enough of something that we do need. 25% of the brain is made up of cholesterol, and we are driving people's cholesterol rates down. No wonder we're not highly functioning, like things are being put out of balance. We're living in a society that leads to imbalances. And when we have the wrong inputs or we don't have enough of the right inputs, then we have imbalances. And this could be the food we're eating. This could be the lack of nutrients. This could be the lack of nourishing relationships. This could be the lack of purpose or joy or, whatever it is. Like it really does come back to like it's so cliche, but like this has been thematic in my week, like getting present and aware. Like you are getting present and aware and really tuning into your emotions and where you're at, and that's really cool. That's really beautiful. And I want that for so many people. And I think part of the magic of what you and I do, like in clinical practice, isn't just like helping people get rid of a disease. It's like helping people get on a higher path to be able to express themselves and do their work in this world and put their light back into this world. And there's just like so much magic and beauty in taking a different approach to these topics and to how we handle grief and to how we look at the whole picture. And Alicia, it's amazing. Like if you just like juxtapose the approach that we take with people to the pharmaceutical approach, like it is just like I can't even like I can't even integrate the two. Like I have such an issue with like how is the world like this sometimes?
Well, girl, if it weren't for people like that, we wouldn't look so good.
We wouldn't have anyone. We wouldn't have clients.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, I'm like looking back to because I took Paxil when I was a teenage girl. Now, there were a lot of things going on. I was underfed, undernourished. I had like a traumatic home environment, right? I was 14 or 15 around this time that this was happening, and I was having like menstrual irregularities, menstrual dysfunction, heavy bleeding, lots of pain, and mood swings. So, there was this I was on the medical conveyor belt. I was totally on the medical conveyor belt of going from one doctor to another and trying to get a diagnosis and like find out what the next step was. This is when I was misdiagnosed with endometriosis. They said, "You have endometriosis probably," without testing for it, and started treating me for endometriosis by giving me hormones in such a way that they call it being pseudo pregnant, tricks your body into thinking that you're pregnant. You take birth control, but when you have the week of placebo pills that you're supposed to take those pills and have a cycle, they'd have me just start a new pack that week, a new pack of birth control pills. So I never had a cycle. And yeah, so your body thinks that you're pregnant, so it doesn't cycle. And then I had all these mood swings and they put me on Paxil. And I self-harmed. I tried to self-harm. So, and then what was it? It was like 2 years later, there was a big class action lawsuit about how Paxil caused suicidal ideations in teenage girls. My point is that there were a lot of things going on there. And it was like, let's give you this pill, and then we'll give you this pill for the side effects from this pill. And there was never any question of like, why is this happening? Or maybe you're malnourished. Maybe you're in a toxic environment. Maybe you need some help. Maybe you feel trapped. Like there was none of that going on there. And so, you can't reconcile. My experience has been is that my approach, our approach, the way that we approach these things is just a completely different approach. Like the two things do not reconcile. And I believe that as time has gone on, they've become even further and further apart.
Yeah, I would agree that it's becoming more obvious. Well, so funny, I like looking back, I was an anxious child. Like I had a pit in my stomach from as far back as I can remember. Like I think back to childhood memories and like finding ones where I felt joy is hard. I can't recall joyous childhood memories. So I
Oh.
noticed I was depressed and anxious and I didn't have words to put around it. I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I actually did not know that that was not normal and other people didn't feel that way until my mid 20s. That was when I realized this isn't normal. Like my outlook on life was life is hard. It's shitty. We suffer. Joy doesn't exist. Love doesn't exist. I did not feel like love for the first time in my life until my mid 20s. And that was like my worldview. I didn't realize these things were normal. And that's actually like the driver that put me on the path to where I am now doing this work was I got a glimpse. I got another glimpse. And then I started, trying to figure out my spiritual life and my health and why my body was out of balance and why my hormones were out of balance and, what happened in my childhood that contributed to this. But it's just the words and the normalization that I had around those feelings were like so real. Like, I'm like, this is just my cross to bear. This is just life.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it. And I do this work because I think other people feel that way. And other people think that it's normal and it can't be fixed, or the path to fix it looks a certain way that doesn't actually take them to the result that they want. And like that is my driver for this, for doing a podcast with you, for studying Ayurveda, for studying herbalism, for getting up and doing my meditation. Like that is my driver, is too many people are suffering and feel shitty and they don't have to, and it's not fair, and that's not the world we have to live in. There is so much love and joy to be accessed. Like how do we give that to the people?
You make a great point, because that's exactly the thing that goes on in our society, right? That there are all of these things and situations and conditions that people have that have been normalized because they are common and because they are prevalent, but they're actually not normal, and they don't have to be common. They don't have to be prevalent. And there is a solution for these things. And I think it always comes down to that thing, right? The awareness that all disease is caused by a lack of awareness. And that doesn't mean that, I think I went on a big tangent about this a few episodes back. That doesn't mean like, shame on you, you're not aware. It's more about, how do I feel right now? What happened that made me feel this way? If I'm
Yeah.
happy, am I happy right now? Okay, what did I do that made me feel this way? Maybe I should do more of that. And is it lasting? What are the consequences? Like, does this feel good? Because some things make you feel good, like heroin makes you feel really good, but there's a consequence to it. So let's pay attention to the things that make us feel good that have big consequences. I don't know. I've recently realized, for example, that coffee, I have huge consequences from coffee. I used to be a daily coffee drinker. I became like a once a month to once a week coffee drinker. And I have recently realized that when I drink one cup of coffee the next day, I like have a hangover. And that makes me not want to drink that one cup of coffee, even though that one cup of coffee is like so delicious. Like coffee just warms my soul, makes me feel like an adult on so many levels. But
That's so true. That's the truest thing ever.
but as I continue to grow in awareness, because I've been practicing that, I've been practicing how do I feel and why for some time now, that I have put together, oh, the next day I'm kind of like sweaty and feel a little sick, almost like I have a coffee hangover, and it's not a small thing that makes me not want to drink coffee. So that's just one example of, I think, one way. And if we end things on a high note, there's so much research on things that we can do to make ourselves feel better. Have we talked about Kirtan Kriya on the podcast before?
Mm-mm.
About the amazing research that's been done featuring Dr. Khalsa in Massachusetts. A lot of the research has been done with people who have Alzheimer's, but it can benefit anyone because it benefits the brain. And it's probably the most researched meditation out there, where they have people do Kirtan Kriya. It's a very simple meditation with a little bit of chanting and a moving mudra. You go sa ta nama, and then you whisper it for a period of time, and then you do it silently, and then you whisper it again, and then you say it out loud again. And we could put like a little PDF to it. I could put some resources when we post the episode if anybody's interested in trying Kirtan Kriya one time and just see how you feel. It increases blood flow in the brain. It's because that's what we want to do, right? We need to do things that exercise the prefrontal cortex and calm the amygdala. We need to do things that modulate that HPA axis. We need to stimulate the vagal nerve. And there's so many things that we can do. The Ujjayi breathing, like I said, anything where you're breathing from the back of the throat, moving your body, getting out in the sun, getting your vitamin D, checking out your nutrient deficiencies. We've done this on the podcast before. Just move your hands. Your hands are so full of nerve endings. When you move your hands, your brain lights up. When I first started digging into this kind of stuff, I thought that it was totally woo, but it's science backed. They did the Berkeley happiness study. Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
There was a documentary on Netflix a couple years ago called Joy. It had the Dalai Lama and what was his name? He was the Archbishop, I think, from South Africa. Tutu. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, right? Mission Joy. So it's a great documentary. Like if you're depressed, just watch that documentary. It'll make you feel great. But afterwards, they had an invitation because UC Berkeley was doing a program. They were researching the science of happiness. And it was a little bit inspired by the Dalai Lama because he said, you're studying all of these things like depression. You study sadness. How about study happiness and see what makes people happy? And so I enrolled in the study. It was a 1-week online program where they had little micro acts, like you make a gratitude list one day. One day it was deeds of kindness. Another day I listened to a 1-minute audio tape of children giggling. And then afterwards, it was 11,000 participants from 22 countries completed surveys before and after. And they found that on average, people's emotional well-being increased by 26%. Positive emotions rose by 23%. Participants felt 27% more empowered to influence their own happiness. Relationships improved by 30%, and sleep quality increased by 12%. And this was literally something that took about 3 minutes a day for 1 week. To me, that's pretty profound.
I would agree. It's a very common thing that I've noticed in my practice that one of the main symptoms, it's not a symptom that brings people in, or maybe it is an underlying motivator, but it's a lack of joy. And people on a really alarming level just feel a lack of joy. And I want to tie this back to awareness and leave with my end on a happy note. And when we talk about awareness and things stemming from a lack of awareness, like we also have to remember that like our awareness starts multiple generations back. And our parents were given a belief system that they didn't agree to. We were given a belief system and we've found a way of operating in the world that we didn't necessarily agree to. And so when we're talking about like awareness, and it's being aware of the food we're eating and how we're feeling and why we're reacting to the world and the way we're reacting, I think that's been one of the biggest like whole life-changing things that I've come to realize is I'm operating in the world in a way I didn't choose. It's coming from my upbringing. And when a certain situation makes me panicky or anxious or sad or moody or whatever it is. Like, I didn't choose that. That was kind of given to me as a child, but now as an adult, I get to decide and I get to operate from a place of awareness and say, why am I reacting this way? Where is this coming from? Can I do something different? And as we start to foster that, we can start to question everything in our being. Every reaction that we have, we can question because it came from somewhere that wasn't our fault. We have the power as adults and the resources as adults to change that. So being aware of our reactions specifically is like life changing. I think so. At least it's been for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Practicing the awareness and to tie it all together. That's the thing about meditation. Meditation is the best practice for helping you to grow in awareness. Can I just like list off some stats here?
Hear it.
Okay. Because there's some great researchers. Richard Davidson from the University of Wisconsin Center for Healthy Minds, and Sarah Lazar from the Harvard Medical School, Massachusetts General Hospital. MRI studies showed that long-term meditators have increased cortical thickness in the prefrontal cortex. This has to do with attention and executive function. And INSLA, which is self-awareness and interoception. Hippocampal growth is linked to better emotional regulation and memory. There's actually functional brain changes. Compassion meditation activates areas in the brain that are linked with empathy and perspective taking. Long-term Tibetan monks demonstrate unusually high gamma wave synchrony, which is linked with learning, memory, and integration of information. Neuroplasticity, the mindfulness-based stress reduction that we talked about a little bit earlier, 8 weeks of it increases gray matter density in regions tied to learning, memory, and self-regulation. Depression and anxiety. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy reduces relapse rates in recurrent depression by 43%. That's pretty awesome. There's moderate reductions in anxiety, similar in effect to some pharmacological treatments, but without side effects. Increases in sustained attention and decreased in mind wandering, if you've got attention and ADHD. And mindfulness and loving kindness meditation, like metta meditation, improves symptoms by reducing hyperarousal and intrusive memories. Veterans in trials showed improved emotional regulation and reduced flashbacks. There's Davison studies show meditation increases antibody responses to flu vaccines. Because guess what? If you're sick all the time or you're in pain all the time, that can make you depressed. That's depressing.
Yep.
Mindfulness reduces pain perception by altering activity in the somatosensory cortex and prefrontal regulation areas, even when no opioid pathways are activated. That's pretty interesting. Compassion and altruism. I'm going to end it with this. Tibetan Buddhist practices like Tonglen and metta, which is the loving kindness meditation, have been extensively studied. Practitioners show higher levels of oxytocin, empathy-related brain activation, and pro-social behavior. Even 2 weeks of compassion meditation training increases willingness to help others in controlled economic games. Because that's really like our purpose, right? For me, one of the most important things in life and mood and like a willingness to get out of bed and go and do the thing and do it with joy is knowing that I have a purpose. And I believe we all have a purpose, and our purpose is to help each other. Our purpose is to serve our community and serve one another. And whatever that looks like, it's usually was it Thich Nhat Hanh says, you know who the most important person is in your life? The person right in front of you. Because that's who has been placed right in front of you for you to serve at that time. So knowing that I have a purpose and having the ability to go and serve that purpose gives me more purpose and makes me a happier person.
I always say the best way to help the world is to help ourselves, because all ships rise with the tide. And when we level up, we're examples, we're pillars of light. We are infectious towards other people taking other journeys and paths, and then the world becomes a better place. And like Alicia said, at the end of the day, we're all just walking each other home. Like that's That's it. It's that simple. It's not about the money. It's not about the house. It's not about the cars. It's not about the Gucci bags. Like, those things don't bring joy and they don't bring happiness. Not sustainably, at least.
Well, that was in 2000. I think it was 2000 when they looked at the geography of bliss, the countries where people are happiest. And I think number 3 or number 4 on the list was Tibet. And they found that people are happy there because nobody has anything. Like, you can't compare yourself to other people. Nobody has a pair of Nike Jordans and nobody has an iPhone. So everybody's happy because there's not this gnawing feeling of lack because you don't have what the Johnsons have.
Mm-hmm. There's not the I have something to lose or I have to be a certain somebody. Like, you can kind of just exist in that environment without feeling like you have to hold it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. So, y'all, I hope that we've convinced you to go try some meditations. Look up Tonglen or Loving Kindness, or I actually will probably just put together a little PDF with some different meditations to try and post it with this episode. And yeah, just there's so many things that we can do. It's really an endless list. If I'm honest, I'll say for 23 years, I have been looking for natural ways to feel better in my body and in my heart and in my brain. And I'm still finding new ways to do that.
Yeah.
So try some
Speaking
out.
of that, I'm ready to go hit some mantras. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you guys so much for listening, for following, for sharing. We really appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Herbalism Uncensored. We're genuinely humbled by the love and support you've shown us. If you've been enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review if you feel called, and don't hesitate to reach out. Whether it's with a question, a success story, or a topic you'd love us to explore in a future episode. And remember, both Alicia and Lila, that's me, run virtual clinics. We'd love for you to check out what we're up to. You can find Alicia's practice Holistically Correct at holisticallycorrect.com, and you can learn more about my work at the Virtual Natural Healing Clinic by visiting tvnhc.com. Until next time, be well, stay grounded, and keep healing.